Welcome to the Bible Knowledge Workshop for episode number 23. We're in the New Testament, which comprises 3 of the 17 time periods of the Bible. Before we get any further, let's review those 17 time periods. We've spent so much time looking at this list and trying to put this list to memory because it's fundamental to our study. If we can memorize the 17 time periods of the Bible and understand how they build one upon another in telling the story of the Bible, we've come a long way in understanding that story of the Bible. And with this skeleton outline, you can then take every person and every event of the Bible and fit them in one of these 17 time periods and understand where they fall on that biblical timeline. And so let's say these time periods again. Before the flood, flood, scattering of the people, patriarchs, exodus from Egypt, wandering in the wilderness, invasion and conquest of Canaan, judges, united kingdom, divided kingdom, Judah alone, captivity, return from captivity, years of silence, life of Christ, early church, and letters to the Christians. And as we've said, the last 3 of these time periods make up the New Testament. Time period number 15, the life of Christ, covers the 4 gospel stories of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The early church covers the book of Acts, as well as some information that we can pull from the epistles to fill in some gaps in our understanding of what took place in the early church. And this last time period, number 17, the letters to the Christians, make up those letters, or as we sometimes call them, the epistles of the New Testament. And so as we look at this time period, let's start by reminding ourselves of the names of the books of the New Testament. Have you put these books to memory? Or maybe you need a refresher course in memorizing the names of the books of the New Testament. Let's say them together. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, Jude, and Revelation. Those are the 27 books of the New Testament. And when we zero in on this 17th time period, we're looking at just those books of the New Testament that make up the epistles, or the letters to the Christians. And our memory work for this time period is we've taken each one of these books, each one of these letters to the Christians, and tried in one brief phrase or sentence to summarize the theme of those epistles. As we've encouraged you to do, you can go to our website at bumby.org and click on Resources and choose Study Materials. And there you'll be able to download and print a copy of these quiz questions. And you'll see when you view those New Testament questions that we've given you a summary of each of the letters to the Christians. You can learn these, or if you'd prefer, you can come up with your own summary. How would you summarize these letters to the Christians? Let's look at the summary that we've provided as a way of memory. Romans We're justified by faith in Christ, not by works of the law. 1 Corinthians, Paul writes to correct the church at Corinth. 2 Corinthians, Paul writes a letter of reconciliation to the church at Corinth. Galatians addresses false teaching of the Judaizing teachers. Ephesians tells us about God's great plan to redeem man. Philippians, an encouraging letter telling how to have joy in Christ. Colossians, we are complete in Christ. 1 Thessalonians, how to keep growing in faith, love, and hope. 2 Thessalonians corrects a misunderstanding about the second coming. 1 Timothy, Paul gives Timothy instruction on godly teaching and example. 2 Timothy, Paul encourages Timothy to continue preaching the word. Titus, Paul tells Titus to appoint elders and to preach the word. Philemon is an appeal for a master to receive back an escaped slave. Hebrews, the things of Christ are superior to the law of Moses. James, faith without works is dead. 1 Peter, hope will sustain us through trials. 2 Peter, knowledge will guard against error. 1 John, an exhortation to love God and our fellow man. 2 John warns against false teachers. 3 John praises Gaius for his hospitality. Jude, contend for the faith against false doctrine. In Revelation, John sees visions of judgment against the persecutors. Will you work on putting to memory those summaries of the letters to the Christians? In our next and last Bible Knowledge Workshop, we want to review some of what we've studied through these 23 episodes of the Bible Knowledge Workshop. And we'll be asking how much of this you've been able to learn and put to memory, where we've tried to learn Bible facts and when they happened. We thank you for joining us for the Bible Knowledge Workshop.